It's not surprising that an author like Ray Bradbury, whose career spanned the birth and golden age of film and television, would have its share of celebrated friendships and encounters. He even starred in a zany television commercial for prunes in the 60s. But to this day, Bradbury is still starstruck. You sound like you've had some interesting experiences too. You got to visit a couple of famous houses with him.
Yeah, that's been incredible. In the same month, in 2004, we went to the Playboy Mansion, where Hugh Hefner had the vision to publish Fahrenheit 451 in its entirety, in the second, third, and fourth issues of Playboy magazine. I mean, he published not just an excerpt; he published the whole book in its entirety. Bradbury's agent, a longtime agent, who just passed away last year, who also happened to represent David Sedaris. So you see this man's career right there is pretty remarkable. He shopped Fahrenheit 451 to various magazines and no one would touch it because this was at the height of the McCarthy era and everybody was like, whoa, this is a little edgy here. This is awfully political. This could be interpreted as socialist or communist or just kind of a dangerous book at that time. So he couldn't sell it to anybody and he ended up selling it to a young 20-something magazine publisher in Chicago named Hugh Hefner, who saw in it exactly what he was trying to do with his magazine. Pushed the boundaries of the era, and really pushed the envelope. And so we went to the Playboy Mansion to interview Hefner in the fall of '04, and pulled up the driveway, and there were three bunnies out in like Lycra workout gear doing jumping jacks on the front yard. I mean, you think it's some marketing plant or something, you know? Bradbury, his jaw dropped. He said, "I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving." We went in. Hefner was in the PJs, and we sat for quite a long time. And boy, I was really amazed at his energy. Still full of ideas, things he wanted to do. Talking about graphic novels and cartoonists he loved, and the zines he published as a kid. I mean, really, you see in people like Hefner and Bradbury what led to the greatness and its excitability and ideas and still yearning to accomplish. So that was an incredible experience. And then a month later, I got a phone call from Ray and he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Not much." "Why?" And he said, "Well, I just got the weirdest phone call from the White House. They are going to give me the Medal of Arts, which is the highest medal given to an artist in America, given out from the President of the United States. And they don't give anybody notice for this. They don't want it to leak out until after the ceremony. For security purposes, they don't want to give people 3 weeks to plan to go to the White House. For whatever reason, they give you no notice." And he said, "I'm going to go. Would you like to accompany me? My daughters are going to go, and I'd love you to go with me. Maybe you can still thread this into the biography." I turned my manuscript in, but I thought, this is, when are you going to pass up going to the White House? So we went. I flew out to Washington the next day. I went to the Air and Space Museum in the morning with Ray Bradbury, and I'm sitting looking at the Wright Flyer with this man who sent people on fanciful missions to Mars with his imagination. I mean, it was really a profound day. And then we got on a tour bus with people like Madeleine L'Engle, who wrote A Wrinkle in Time, the first Newbery Award-winning book. This weird, surreal experience. Got on this bus and pulled up the drive to the White House. Walked into the Roosevelt room in the rear end of the White House where Roosevelt gave his fireside chats. Each recipient of the medal that day had a Marine escort. They walked us through the White House, down that famous walkway where you see Kennedy, ruminating on the Cuban Missile Crisis with his brother, and by the Rose Garden. I mean, it's just this. Am I dreaming? This is the weirdest thing. Walked into the West Wing. Into a side room off the Oval Office. You see Teddy Roosevelt's posthumous Congressional Medal of Honor, up on the wall, and sitting there thinking, this is so odd. Karl Rove walks out and sees Ray Bradbury, and I mean, just exploded, grabbed Bradbury's hand and almost shook his arm off. Said, "Oh my God, I love the Martian Chronicles. It changed my life." I'm thinking, my life is just getting weirder by the millisecond here. And as a writer, I'm kind of looking around the White House for, I don't know, I just have an odd curiosity for details. thinking how, looking, there were cracks in the plaster, there was a coffee stain on the floor, Condi Rice spiller Frappuccino in the morning. I think this is just a normal house in some ways. And they said, okay, there's a light above this door. When that goes green, the door's going to open and you're going to all walk into the Oval Office. So we stand there, we're waiting, and the light goes green, the door opens automatically, and you look through this long hallway, and there is George W. Bush standing very rigid, kind of, that husk. He's got kind of that buffed up stance, and Laura is with him in this dashing, haute couture suit, and they're standing in the Oval Office staring at us very rigidly, almost like they're those cardboard cutouts from Times Square. They weren't even moving. And we walked in. First thing I noticed, they both had TV makeup on, immense amounts of TV makeup on. I don't know why. They probably had given an interview earlier. But, all politics aside, they were charming. Laura Bush quoted a passage from Dandelion Wine, Bradbury's very famous autobiographical novel set in Waukegan, Illinois. She quoted a beautiful passage from it and said, "You know how I know that?" And Ray said, "How?" And she said, "I read that to my kids in Texas when I was a librarian every summer." And Bush pushed Ray Bradbury around the Oval Office in the wheelchair. I mean, here you have the president wheeling him around, showing him artwork. Asked me, what's the process like to work on a biography? Where do you start? How do you tell it chronologically? I mean, he was asking me pretty pointed, cool questions, and I thought, A, do you really even care? But, he was totally engaged. I'm, politically not a fan, but I give the guy a lot of credit. So at the end of that day, we went to the East Room for a big party. Lynn Cheney was there, spouse to everybody's favorite vice president. And she proceeded to tell me about a dream she had had the night before. The day just kept getting weirder and weirder. Lynn Cheney's telling me about her dreams as I'm drinking wine and eating shrimp in the East Room. I thought, is life going to ever get stranger than this? And 5 years later, it hasn't yet. I'm hoping I can top that one.